And now here's today's Money Metals Minute, brought to you by MoneyMetals.com. Gold and silver each got a boost Wednesday following the Fed Reserve's decision to leave its benchmark interest rate unchanged. The odds of the Fed doing anything before the election appear to be slim to none. Meanwhile, the platinum group metals continue to gain momentum. It was a banner week for the industrial metal. Platinum is up 5% since last Friday's close. It currently trades at almost $1,140 per ounce. Meanwhile, palladium is advancing for the sixth straight week to bring spot prices to $700. That's a gain of 3%. And now here is a special report from Mike Gleason of Money Metals Exchange.
It is my privilege now to be joined by Dr. Chris Martenson of peakprosperity.com and author of the book Prosper, How to Prepare for the Future and Create a World Worth Inheriting. Chris is a commentator on a range of important topics such as global economics, financial markets, governmental policy, precious metals, and the importance of preparedness, among other things. What do you make of all of the recent social unrest here in the U.S., Chris? I mean, we've seen police shootings followed by protests and revenge killings of police officers in a number of cities around the country. And then we've got probably the two most polarizing figures ever running for president. What does the recent unrest signal here, Chris?
I think this is connected to the same factors that I talked about with Brexit. Look, Mike, what's happening here is that people are getting squeezed. If you believe the inflation numbers, go get your head checked or study up on it, because we know we're getting inflation that's at least twice as high, maybe 3 times as high as officially announced. And that's really hurting people. Savers just getting crushed. We're watching banks get bailed out. We're watching Hillary skate on what are obvious transgressions of the law as it's written, and it's not a complicated law to understand about mishandling of classified information. She got a pass on that, amongst other things. So, listen, we're primates. Fairness and justice are hardwired into us. That's the thing. So people are feeling and seeing the unfairness of this all. But what it comes down to really for me, Mike, at this stage, they ran these really interesting experiments back in the 40s and 50s where they would take a rat and put it in a cage and make it so there's nothing in the cage, it can't escape, and they shock the floor, right? And the rat hates it, but ultimately they figure out how to tolerate it, they curl up in a ball, they're miserable. If you put 2 rats in the cage, what happens is that all of a sudden they're both getting shocked, they're both hated, it's painful, but now they have somebody to look at and go, oh, it's you, and they fight. And if you leave them in there long enough, they fight to the death. And so what that experiment shows us is that when people are, and rats and people are the same this way, if you don't know where the shocks are coming from, you go to the blame game. That's what we're starting to see. I believe that police and the people they are policing are actually on the same side of the story, but they don't know it. So they're looking at each other. They're blaming the wrong parties in this state. The pie is no longer expanding. In fact, the piece of the pie that used to belong to even the upper middle class on down is being rapidly vacuumed out. All that oxygen is being sucked out of the room by a financial system, not just bankers, but a complete financial system that just doesn't know how to say enough. And it's vacuuming more and more and more for itself at ever-increasing rates. And that's leaving less and less for everybody else. And guess what? Along come polarizing figures, one who's representing the status quo and allows people to default into the denial of saying, well, if we just get back to pretending everything's okay and we shoot for the middle zone and don't say anything too troubling, things will be okay. Spoiler alert, they won't. And another guy who's saying, hey, I got an answer for this, and this is troubling, and we need to start getting angry about this. And so he's tapped into the anger side. And I think both of them are missing the mark on this, which is that we have to have a more fundamental, substantive discussion about what's really happening in this country, which is that we have some systems that are run amok, and they are going to take us into a really dark territory if we don't stop them now.
Well, I know you've organized your fair, so you're no longer living in a major metropolitan area. Do you have advice for people to maybe consider that type of move, given the fact that there could be some real instability in some of these major city centers with all of this violence?
Short answer, move. Longer answer, be prepared to move. So I do work with people who live in urban areas that, you know, they're there for a variety of reasons. They're not yet ready to make the move, but they are increasingly having plans for how they would get out of there. And listen, this is something, the difficulty in this, Mike, is this idea of shifting baselines where if you're a person and you took a person today from my town and you dropped them into Oakland, California, they would leave so quickly that, you know, because it'd be like dropping a frog in boiling water. They would jump right out of that. But for people living there, you know, it's a little bit violent, but it's 4 blocks away, and somebody got shot 6 blocks away, and then, you know, a month later it's 2 blocks away, but that's okay. The police responded quickly. And over time, people lose their sense of perspective over what's happening. So my invitation to people is to really look around and actually see what's happening. Ask yourself if the trend is getting better or worse. And regardless of whether it's getting better or worse, is that really where you want to live? And a lot of people say the answer is no, but they don't know what to do next. My invitation is, well, start figuring out what that plan is, because there really is no time like the present to begin figuring these things. That takes time. It just takes time.
And that was Dr. Chris Martenson at Mike Gleason at moneymetals.com. Live prices right now at moneymetals.com show gold currently trading at $1,335.85 per ounce on the global market. Silver comes in at $20.09.